Entering Corsi Nation.
This is Jerome Corsi, and today we've got a special guest. I'm really pleased to bring on the show Cregg Lund, who has written this novel we published, which is Silicon Satan. And this novel, I've been working with Cregg on this for several years. Cregg first came to me and talked about his experience in Silicon Valley, and we started in on writing a novel about his experience. And Cregg has actually completed the novel. The first one is published, and we've now created a column on CorsiNation.com. We're going to show you that in a minute. And Cregg is writing a second novel, and it's being serialized on our website. So here, Chris is showing you the website, and if you scroll down, you'll see here, in fact, we have a Silicon Satan column right there, and a chapter of the next novel is displayed there. You can read it, and that's in that window. We will be having the next serialization. It'll be a serialized novel, and when you go to the homepage, homepage for Cregg on our website, you'll have additional information. So when you click, I believe you click the white bar. Can you navigate there, Chris, to his page? I think it's the red bar beneath the story, right there. See that red bar? You click that. I think there you go. This is Cregg's page on our website. Okay, and you're going to see who he is, various aspects of previous chapters. Cregg has his own website, siliconsatan.com. We're going to talk about all this. He's a brilliant programmer. He does a lot of animations. I think it's going to be, to me, this is a very important part of the program, because I want people to understand that the satanic nature of life exists. It's real. It's not fantasy. The demonic is part of our spiritual existence, and we have to fight it. And with Cregg's experience, we're going to be able to understand what he went through. He experienced it. He escaped. He's now living off-grid and is still recovering from the experience. But these novels are part of the therapy of him sharing his experience and working it out internally. So, Cregg, thank you for joining us. And I admire your courage in confronting these demons and writing this book.
Well, thank you for having me, Jerry.
Well, let's start out with you were a programmer in Silicon Valley.
Yes.
And tell us how you started in Silicon Valley, how you got there, and what you were doing, because you really were on a fast track to be making huge amounts of money and to be very prominent in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I like to say I Forrest Gumped my way there. I never really intended on getting a degree in computer science. I was always interested in math and physics. And I was in Monterey. I was at Monterey Peninsula College taking physics courses, and my physics teacher was the one who talked me into applying at Cal Poly in computer science. So I did, and I got accepted. Even though I was a high school dropout, I got accepted. And next thing I knew, I was in Silicon Valley.
Well, you must have done
kind of happened that fast.
Must have been done pretty well in computer science.
I did very well because I had a very strong affinity for math and physics. So if you know math, then you know computer science. And back then, you have to remember, this is a long time ago. This is 30 or 40 years ago. Silicon Valley was a much different place, and programming was a lot different. I mean, when you were programming back there, you were down at pretty close to the hardware level, whereas today you're 3 or 4, maybe 6 or 7 layers up.
Yeah, you're almost a machine code level, down at that level.
Yeah, I did write a lot of assembly code. In my past, and I have code all over the place now. It's kind of odd. In fact, I have code in the Unix kernel, which means I'm certain there's Unix systems on SpaceX rockets. So that means I have code up in space.
Yeah, I mean, this is very advanced stuff. And computers operate in 1 and 0. And assembly language is the structure of the 1s and 0s that tells the computer what to do.
Yeah, so to speak. I look at it as on and off. Any real computer scientist will look at it as on and off. I mean, these are on and off states. You have two binary states, and that's the confusing part about quantum computing. I mean, maybe we'll get there, but I'm very interested in how this works, and I cannot figure it out. And every time I get to the that particle, I forget the name of it, that they say is making quantum computing possible, I hit a wall. So there's something else going on, and I'm pretty certain I have it figured out at this point.
Well, we'll get to that. Now, in Silicon Valley, you had a career and you started getting employed. And why don't you tell us about how your career track progressed?
Well, let's see. It really started while I was still at Cal Poly. I had a strong background in construction, living on a horse ranch. And so I was taking construction jobs to pay my way through college. And I hooked up with this one guy who happened to be working at Diablo Canyon. He was one of the managers out there at Diablo Canyon. And his wife would make us lunch. And so I went to his office one day, and he had a bunch of stuff on the whiteboard. And he was explaining it to me. I don't really remember what it was, but I figured it out for him. I can't recall what exactly it was, but I figured something out for him, and he was impressed. And so he hired me as a part-time programmer, even though I hadn't graduated yet at Diablo Canyon. And then, so I worked there for a couple of years, but I had to keep it real quiet because in San Luis Obispo, it's a very liberal town. You really didn't want people knowing that you worked out there, because they were protesting all the time. And what was his name? I can't remember the guy's name. Jackson, something or other. A musician was out there protesting, so I had to be very careful about
Jackson Brown, I think it was.
Jackson Brown.
Jackson,
Yeah.
Jackson Brown.
Jackson Brown.
Yeah, Jackson Brown.
Yeah, so I got to meet him going into the gate. And then I just everywhere I went, I was meeting people and getting new opportunities. And it happened very fast, very, very fast. I graduated with a lot of people who ended up working for me, and not directly, but I was 4 or 5 levels ahead of them within 3 or 4 years. In 3 or 4 years, I was already at executive level management. And a lot of it had to do with going to these parties and meeting the right people and not backing away. That's how you make it there. Is a lot of people have this idea that you can go to Hollywood or Silicon Valley now and say, hey, I'm here to sell my soul for fame. And it doesn't work that way. You got to have skill, you got to have, and you got to have that X factor. You got to have that charisma. You got to, and you got to be willing. You got to show that you're willing. And it took me a long time to get over the fact that I did that. I did these things. I did a lot of these things. At the time, you don't think about it. It's just happening so fast. And then one day you look back, you go, man, what am I doing? And by then it's too late,
And you're saying you wrote code, and it's in the Unix machines, and it's probably in space and SpaceX, etc. Now, I want people to understand that you, in terms of creating Unix systems, Unix code, you were writing routines for the computer. You're writing basic operating routines.
In that particular example, as I recall, it was a long time ago, but we had to modify the IO control system call for something we were doing. I believe we were doing it. It was on a TFS project. But anyway, so you submit your change, and then if it gets accepted, it becomes part of the kernel, and it got accepted. And so, so that's one of my claims to fame was
that becomes a permanent part of the Unix system.
Right.
That code becomes fundamental architecture.
I don't know if my original lines of code are still there, but because they may have been upgraded or enhanced or overwritten, rewritten, whatever. I've never looked.
Right, but it's possible it's still there.
It's probable. Same thing with I wrote the PeopleSoft tree utility, the tree manager, which is a tool. It's a graphical interface to a hierarchical database. That's what it started out as, but it became a navigation tool. And Oracle owns it now. Larry Ellison, my friend Larry Ellison, owns it now. But that's probably in every corporate 2000 or global 2000 company across the planet. So yeah, I got code everywhere.
Yeah, code everywhere. Now, the book Silicon Satan tells a story, and where did you grow up?
I grew up in California on a horse ranch, on a large Tennessee Walker horse ranch that my grandfather ran. My grandfather and his son and my dad at the time. I've had a few dads, but it was in Central California. It was if you go to Fresno and turn left, go east until you hit the mountains. That's where we were.
Yeah, and the story takes place in the same locale. I
Yeah,
mean, you
pretty much.
fictionalized your life story.
What I was trying to do was give some background as to why I made the kinds of decisions that I was making. Because when I first started writing, I hadn't, you know, Corrine, I hadn't told Corrine a whole lot. And when I was writing, so
Kareen's your wife. Kareen's your wife.
correct. I hadn't told Corrine everything, of course. Told her enough to try to scare her away, but she wouldn't go. Um, sorry, I just lost something buzzed over there. I lost what were we talking about?
We're talking about how you grew up in this ranch and you fictionalized it.
Oh yeah, right. So I was trying to give background into why I made the decisions that I made, because even when Corrine was reading it, she was asking, "Well, why didn't you just walk away? Why didn't you just turn around and walk away?" And it wasn't that easy. It's really not that easy to do that. I mean, when you're there, and there's all this glamour, and people are, rich people and money and girls and drugs and stuff going on, it's really hard to just walk away. I mean, eventually I did, and that was really hard. I mean, it took 3 attempts to do it, and God's the one that got me out of there.
Well, the book starts out on this ranch, and tell who's the main character in the book.
The main character is a guy named Raj. He's sort of modeled after me. My grandfather on my dad's side was nicknamed Raj because our last name is Rogers. He worked for Howard Hughes on the Spruce Goose. He was a aviation engineer.
Right, and in the story, it starts out. I mean, these first scenes in the story, which captivated me. Raj is out riding, and there's a girl involved in it. Let's tell that story.
Yeah, that seems to be the most controversial part of the book, even though there's a lot of double stuff going on. People seem to be most offended by those first few scenes. So what I was trying to do there was show that where I grew up, the way I grew up, the adults were not very responsible people at all. It was the 60s and 70s. And, they had the whole sexual revolution going on. And, my family was right there on the front lines of it. And we were a party barn, we Tennessee Walkers. So it was a lot of parties. So I was already into the party scene. Right. And then, so what I was trying to do was kind of relate a lot of events that took place out there. I tried to kind of bundle them up into one sort of, scene with the little girl Sloan. I mean, that kind of thing was happening pretty readily out there. I mean, we had a lot of people out there, a lot of, I've seen people having sex when I was, 7 years old, kind of thing. I mean,
so you're a young guy riding a horse, and Sloan comes out, and she wants to ride the horse, and she shows herself naked to you.
Pretty much, yeah. And it happened a little bit differently in real life with my real ex-wife. I actually was up in a cave. Not the horse we parked already. We went up to this cave, this family cave, but I didn't want to bring that into the story.
Well, and the whole scene is very sexual, even though you're children. And,
right. Well, we grew up that way, though. I mean, to us, it wasn't. It didn't seem like we were even going to get that much trouble for that kind of stuff. We weren't really that worried about it.
And part of it also has to do with the sexualization of children,
yes,
which is part of the whole satanic cult ritual.
Right. So that's what I was trying to do was hook that in to show, okay, well, where does this kind of behavior, lead 20 years later? And you can kind of see, in the 60s and 70s, everything was supposedly innocent, but it evolves, and it evolves very quickly. It evolves so quickly you can't keep up. By the time I reached Silicon Valley, getting naked and having sex in front of people wasn't a big deal anymore. I mean, it is now. I mean, I'm different now. But back then, it was just routine. It was just part of the day.
It's part of the whole, and this normalization of sex, even as young children, which is the pedophilia aspect.
Yeah.
And it is now, I think, a worldwide major issue of corruption in terms of the ruling elites, the wealthy elites, the World Economic Forum elites, the Silicon Valley elites, Hollywood elites, government elites. I mean, it's for the average person, it's almost hard to get your mind around that the sexualization of children or the pedophilia is central to this whole satanic orientation towards life.
Yes. And, once I broke out and I started looking back, I felt very guilty because it seemed like it all started with us, but it didn't. It started a long time ago. It's been going on for thousands of years. But it felt like it started with my generation. And I carried around a certain guilt for a long time. Started doing the research and realized there is something big in the world, something very big that I ran into, and I'm going to figure out what it is.
Well, I mean, you've even got parts of the book. It's a fascinating book. When people start reading this, first of all, I guarantee that your first reaction is going to be, this is not easy to read because some of it's just shocking. And it's not pornography because it's not written for the point of view to titillate. It's the sex is really almost in some ways not repulsive, but it's so twisted that you're realizing a spiritual dimension to a spiritual perversion.
Yeah.
And the darkness of it is what hits you. So when people start reading this book, sometimes they can't get very far because it's dark. And then once you get over that, then they get captivated by the book and people get to a point where they can't stop reading it.
Yeah, and the fact that it's borderline pornographic should be a warning. It should be a big red flag. I didn't write pornography. I wrote true experiences. I fictionalized. I changed the names and the places, but the events were common. So if people today still think that's borderline pornography, then they have a lot of catching up to do. A lot.
Yeah, and for instance, when you talk about what you just mentioned, the fact that this has been ancient, part of the book goes on, discusses getting into Hawaii.
Yeah.
And you go into the ancient rituals in Hawaii, which involved sacrifice and eating and cooking of babies.
Right. So I'd done a project in Hawaii on the Keck telescope. I wrote the process control system for the dome and shutters of the mighty Keck telescope. And I learned a lot about Hawaii being there. My friends were Hawaiians. And then when I came back and ended up in Silicon Valley, this was just before I'd gone to Silicon Valley, and then I got that project, that job. And so I spent 2 years in Hawaii, and then I came back to Silicon Valley, and I started noticing there's a lot of Hawaii. There's a lot of Hawaii in Silicon Valley. Why is everybody so infatuated with Hawaii? And then I kind of put the pieces together. It's because they're cannibals, and Hawaii is one of the most successful, if not the most successful, cannibalistic society in history. And the reason why they were so successful is because they were isolated, first of all, and because they had two classes of people. They had the elite, the royal class, and then the commoners, the kamainas. And they were very very careful about what they ate. They wanted young, healthy, and pretty much nothing else. But a lot of it was punishment as well. But that's why you see a lot of these guys they're building these big mansions in Hawaii. When I was there one day, I got lost and we ran out of gas, and when you run out of gas in Hawaii, you're kind of lost. And I saw these lights and I crawled over there, and it turned out it was Harrison Ford's new place. Nobody even knew he was building this place. And it's just a big mansion right there. So everybody's building these mansions, and they like Hawaii because they like the spirit of the successful cannibalism, I suppose. They're drawn to that. The demons that hang out with them are drawn to it, and they're all there. It's like a big club over there.
Well, and the demons are real. I mean, you're talking.
They're real. They're very real. Yeah, they're here right now.
The spiritual entities that are present.
Yeah,
and that people begin to perceive them.
You learn to recognize them. You learn to see them.
And they are actual existing beings.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And what I've learned is if you don't want to see them, it's really hard for them to be seen. There are a lot of limitations that these demons are under. And that's why they have a lot of knowledge. They have a lot of, in fact, that's what I'm writing now is about how are we getting this knowledge from these watchers? You know, how are we getting this quantum computer technology that we don't even understand? And it's very difficult to get. It's not like they just hand you a set of specs. You know, it takes a lot of ritual to get to that point. It takes a lot of ritual to do a lot. That's why the rituals are so prevalent in Silicon Valley and Hollywood. It's all about the rituals. People don't realize it, but they're running us all through rituals all the time. Every time you watch a Super Bowl halftime, you're part of a ritual. Every time you watch the Olympics shows, you're part of a ritual. You know, there's a lot of spell casting going on, especially these days. I see a lot of it now, a lot of spell casting going on. That's why you got these people walking around like zombies. They're under a spell.
Yeah, and the demonic nature of it. I mean, the events that occur, first of all, the rituals to get initiated into this, which involve sex and fairly bizarre sex, very abusive sex. Yeah. And, you know, if you're going to be initiated into it, the experience of the ritual almost co-opts you into not being able to get away from it. In other words, it captures part of your soul and captures part of your being.
Right. So it does a couple of things. It punches a hole in your soul, makes you a lot weaker, and it gives the guys something to hold over you.
Right. Blackmail.
Right. So, you know, they talk a lot about loyalty. You got to be loyal. You want to be in this club, you got to be loyal. We want to test your loyalty. It's just, you hear about it's just loyalty. And that way, you know, when it comes time to prove your loyalty, it's real easy for them to get you to do a lot of stuff you wouldn't do normally. I did a lot. I've done a lot of things. I'm not affected by it anymore. Well, I guess I am, but I'm still ashamed of it. You know, I wish, you know, there's no getting away from it, you know, my past, but except to try to warn people, you know, don't do that. Don't walk into this. Just don't do it. Don't walk into it. You know, I know a lot of people who have had great careers in Silicon Valley, and they don't know any of this. They don't know. I mean, people I graduated with, one guy contacted me not too long ago. He's like, Craig, you've gone crazy. None of this was going on. It's like, yeah, not for you. That's why you're not a gazillionaire. That's why you made a good living and you retired, but that's all you got. You know, you weren't part of it. You were never part of it. You don't have to be.
If you get into the demonic part of it, if you go through the rituals and you become part of the whole scene, and the scene is sex parties with drugs, orgies, with the, you know, extravagant exhibition. Someone might get killed on stage to heighten everybody's excitement in the sexual acts performed. I mean, these things are.
It's that, and it's also to get the other entities that are in the room excited as well. You have to kind of prove to them, you know, what we got going on, and what you know, this is what we're doing here. We're not gonna, you know, we're not here. We're not messing around. We're not amateurs here. We called you in for a reason, you know.
Well, evil is not just doing evil things; it's doing evil things because they're evil.
Yeah, yeah.
You want to call these powers forward.
The whole thing is the whole goal is power and prestige, and you wonder, well, okay, so like the guy I just mentioned, he had a pretty good living. Why do you need so much power and prestige? And I don't know if we want to talk about this today. We can talk about it eventually, but to me it's these Lucy wars that I see. It's all about the Lucy wars, and
talk about the Lucy wars. What are the Lucy wars?
The best way to describe it is it's kind of like the Game of Thrones, where you have all these houses and they're all competing to be the number one. And in the Lucy wars, you have all these, I call them covens or circles, Lucy circles. They're all battling for power, or battling for recognition from Lucifer. They want to be Lucifer's number one, and Lucifer doesn't care. Lucifer wants full control. He doesn't care. He doesn't care how he gets it. He doesn't care who gives it to him. He doesn't care. And a lot of these guys think that he does, but he doesn't. I say he just because it's easier. So you and I are part of a house. You know, these peasants are part of these houses in Game of Thrones, and they think that these royal people are, you know, they're looking out for us, and really they're not. They're looking out for themselves, but at the same time, it might benefit them to look after all their people, because their people are the ones that feed them, etc. And these wars are, if you look, well, I'm not really ready to talk about it yet. I guess
You'll
it's
get there. You'll get
okay.
there.
It's
And
hard
but
to
it's
explain. It's hard to explain. I mean, if I use a Game of Thrones analogy, it starts to fall apart a little bit. But if you watch, you can see I can see these guys. Like I can see the Silicon Valley Luciferians battling with the DC Luciferians, battling with the Hollywood Luciferians against the Russian Luciferians. You know, there's all these battles going on, and we think it's politics. We think that it's for us. We think that they're battling for us. They're not. They're battling for themselves. And if they can bring us along, great, because you know we do a lot. You know, and this I see right now that everything is changing though. Everything is suddenly changing after, you know, I've been watching these people for 30 years and something big is going on. It looks like a big reset, some sort of, I mean, the great reset. But when I say reset, I mean, it's like they're resetting their baseline. You know, why did they get everybody off the streets in 2020? Because they want to reset their baseline for surveillance. You know, why did they censor so many people? Again, they're resetting their baseline for acceptable speech. So they're going to all these great lengths. Something is coming. Something big is coming.
well, it's almost like they at a point where they're going to lose it if they don't win. So they're racing to the finish line.
Yeah. Yes. I don't. When you talk to these people, they don't believe in losing. They don't think they're going to lose at all. They really do believe that they are going to battle God and take over God's kingdom and win. They really do believe that. I mean, these people are crazy. They really are.
But they're truly devoted to Lucifer.
Yes, and they're truly devoted because they truly believe that that's the right thing. They think that we're the bad guys.
That they get power, that Lucifer really rules here, and so therefore they have to seek the favor of Lucifer, even if it means committing heinous acts, killing, eating babies, torturing.
But if you are brought up to a superhuman level, then when you devour a human infant, you don't look at it as a human infant anymore. It's not. You're not to that person. He's not really committing a sin anymore, because
you're consuming the power of the entity.
Yeah, that and yeah, yeah.
You're feeding on something that is evil, but it's building your power.
But again, they don't. It's hard to say, but they don't see themselves as evil. They're not. To them, they're not doing evil things. They're not doing anything wrong. They're doing what they are supposed to do. They're doing what should be done, as far as they are all concerned. You know, and a lot of these people are very, very, you know, these are the richest and wealthiest people in the world, and they have these secret life where they think that they're going to live forever, and Lucifer is going to be their god, and they're going to live for, you know. Yeah.
Well, you know, the book has a lot of dramatic scenes in it in which this is all played out. And as you get into the book and you start getting seduced into reading the logic of what's going on, the logic of the sex, the logic of the relationships, the logic of the drugs, the black magic, all this stuff begins to create a world that is so foreign to most people that it would be hard to believe it even exists. But it is, but it is not fantasy. It actually exists.
It does exist. A lot of times they'll make it look fantastical on purpose, just to throw everybody off. That's where the Satanists come in. They like to use the Satanists. So there's a difference between the Luciferians and the Satanists. The Satanists are amateurs. They don't really know what they're doing, but the Luciferians will use them as cover. If something goes wrong, you know, every time I went to one of these big parties, there's always the Satanists are always there. But that way, if something goes wrong, they'll just blame it on them. They'll say the stupid Satanists did another botched, you know, sacrifice. They don't know what they're doing, you know. So when you see that, then you know, oh, something got botched. Somebody screwed up. Something went wrong. They're never going to get caught. The people that were there are never going to get caught. It's going to be these poor fools in these, you know, these gothic outfits that will take the blame.
I just got to read a couple paragraphs here. This is on a paragraph that's dealing with Easy, a character you create called Easy.
Easy, yeah.
And say,
my favorite character.
Who is Easy? He says, wait till you meet him if you ever do. He's really ugly and big, like he could eat a bear raw. And he's also like the nicest guy I've ever met. It's really strange. If you saw him on the streets, you'd be like, oh my God, he's going to kill everybody. Then you have dinner with him and find out he's very articulate and intelligent. He has a very different way of looking at things. Anyway, he and Dana are getting married at the ranch in a couple of months. Easy said he was going to invite up about 3,000 outlaw bikers, including a couple dozen real Hell's agents. You should come if you can. Talking to Raj.
Yeah, Hell's Angels.
Hell's Angels. Now, scenes like this remind me of saying, that the nature of the sophistication of Lucifer. This is a sophisticated and elegant, represented as a life that's higher, above. That a man of a class and distinction, or whatever the Rolling Stones said. Remember the Rolling Stones song about Satan?
Yeah.
Which is, a man of class and distinction.
Sympathy for the devil.
Sympathy for the devil, right? And so, but at the heart, there's an element to it which is frightening, but at the same time attracting, as if this is powerful, interesting, strange, but alluring.
Yeah,
seductive,
very alluring.
very alluring. And there are many scenes in the book like this, and as you begin to get into it, you see the seductive power of it all, and yet these people advance. These are the people who are blessed. So they get to head corporations. They get all kinds of money. Everything is working powerfully.
Right.
But you can't opt out, can you?
You can't. That's what makes me unique. I don't care if people believe me or not. I was on that track. I mean, I was definitely on that track. I was going far, and God got me out of there. That's just no other way to say it.
How did that happen?
Well, the first thing that happened, the first weird thing, I started having urges. First of all, that I got to get out of here. This is weird. I don't like doing this anymore. I don't care where I'm going. And when I started having urges, I know, all of a sudden I noticed that the people I was working with seemed to have picked up on that, because suddenly I was sort of a bad guy. And then ultimately, and this is going to sound strange, but I got thrown into a maximum security mental institution. I mean, these guys got me thrown in there. This is the J Ward of Marathon Mental Hospital. Yeah, that's the mental hospital in the Bay Area, and J Ward is the belly of the beast. And I got thrown in there, and it wasn't looking good for me. And this voice that I put in the book got me out. I escaped. I was able to escape by listening to this voice. It sounds crazy, but I mean, who has ever managed to escape from maximum security mental institution? You escape from jail and you're a murderer. People think, okay, you go out and murder. You escape from jail and you're a drug guy. You escape from a mental institute, and they don't know what you're going to do. So I was a fugitive in 3 counties and 22 police agencies, and it took me about a month to get out of that. But I finally got out of it, and then of course I went right back into Silicon Valley. So I kept doing what I was doing, and the next thing that happened was I got really sick to where I was in the hospital. And I had to have a heart valve transplant. And that's when I thought, well, okay, this is the perfect time to get out of here, because I'm going to be laid up for a long time, and I can kind of fade away. And that it took a year for that to happen, for me to get through all that. But again, I started going back. So then the third thing that happened was we got ran off. I was a passenger in a car. I got ran off the road. We went down the cliff, and I broke my neck, and next thing I know, I'm in back at Stanford Medical Center with a broken neck and paralyzed. They said, you're gonna be paralyzed. You're gonna be in a wheelchair the rest of your life. My sisters had already making plans to shoot me in the head, because they knew there's no way this guy can live in a wheelchair. And then after about 4 or 5 days, I could start moving again, and pretty soon I'm moving. And then I found out that I'm getting a whole bunch of money out of this. A whole bunch, these guys, when I was backing out, when I was trying to get out, they start cutting things off. They took away my car, they took away my credit cards. And now suddenly I had like $500,000 of my own money from this car accident, because I still had really good insurance and stuff. So that's when I took off. I went up north, Northern California, hit out, hooked up with a couple horseback riding outfits up there. Hung out for a while up there, did a lot of traveling, kept a real low profile. And then my mother bought some property in Squaw Valley, California, to build a horse ranch. So I went over there, spent about a year there, helping her build that place up. And then found some property to buy of my own. So I bought that and was remodeling. And that's when I met Corrine. And Corrine stuck around. And, I was doing a lot of serial dating, 15 years prior to that. And I made a point of scaring women off because I really didn't want anybody. But Corrine wouldn't leave, and she's still here all these years later. Thank God for that.
Well, I mean, you did pull yourself out of it, and that's rare.
Yeah, I don't take the credit. I can't take all the credit though, because those three things got me out of there.
And in the book, a large part of the book is getting out of it, and what you went through to get out of it, and how you found yourself with nothing.
Yes.
And all that you had could be stripped from you, including your identity, and it about drove you insane. Yeah.
So when I came back after the heart surgery, and everybody was like, "Okay, great, you're back. Yeah, we got this going." And they could tell I wasn't interested. That's when they started cutting stuff off. They could tell that, okay, something happened to this guy. Maybe it was being on a heart-lung machine for 8 hours, because that does change your personality. I don't care what they thought. But I was heading out, and they knew it, and they started cutting stuff off.
Well, go ahead.
What they do is they start taking you out of all the opportunities, and the opportunities to get to the places that a lot of these guys are at now that you see every day. You have to stick with it. You have to keep going. You have to keep being there. You have to keep doing it. You can't take days off. You can't say, "Oh, I'm sick, I have to take a year off." Even though I was allowed to. When I came back, it was like, we've lost interest. You go to Stockton, and we got a job for you out there.
Well, the whole process of getting out, and you're good on this too, and we'll do much of this discussion to interpret things that we're seeing in the world from a Luciferian perspective. In other words, okay, so a famous actor dies. Robin Williams' suicide comes to mind immediately.
Well, Robin Williams was red scarfed.
Talk about red scarfing.
Red scarfing is, I don't know that they do it so much anymore, because it's too obvious now. Red scarfing is when, and I found out about it way back then because I was very close to what was going on. When you get red scarf, you commit suicide by hanging yourself with a red scarf on a doorknob. And how does that happen? But I think I have a list of a whole bunch on my website. I think maybe a dozen or so. People that you would recognize, but there's a lot of people that happens to. That just means that Robin Williams had his contract was up, and he wasn't willing to renew it, or he was about to do something. He was about to whistleblow or tell on them. It's either one, or you get red scarred for one or the other.
You become. They kill you because you're no longer loyal.
It's more than killing you. It's a ritual. They take your blood. They take your last breath blood. They do all this weird shit. They all these guys have these handkerchiefs, with blood on them, and that's their trophies. A lot of these guys are wearing swatches. It's human skin, from victims that they had contracts out on. And these guys are, like I said, they're crazy. They act normal. You go to dinner with them and you don't even know that they have human skin, that their little swatch right here is actually human skin.
It's so bizarre.
It is. It's unbelievable. That's why I was quiet for a long time, because who's going to believe me? Who's going to believe us? And then all of a sudden, I put this picture out on 4chan, that one with all those guys, all the tech guys, and Obama. And then someone Patriot soapbox. I went out there. That's when I saw you and those guys, and doing all the Q and talking about all this stuff. And it's like they're talking about stuff that I'm hiding. They're talking about the stuff that I refuse to talk about. Maybe now I can start talking about it. And that's when I contacted you.
Well, there was a picture. I don't know whether you can find it, Chris, but there's a picture, a famous picture of Obama in Silicon Valley, and he's at the table having dinner and drinks, and he's surrounded by all the luminaries at the table from Silicon Valley. And it, looks like it was around the time, I think, when Obama was running for re-election around 2011 or 2012.
Well, here's the thing, that picture, they do this a lot. When something like that leaks, they'll come up with a backstory.
That's the picture right there.
Yeah, that's it. So the backstory that I've been hearing about that is not the true backstory. They've made that up. That's not the right backstory. This 2012, and this was a marketing meeting or something. No, that's just their cover story now. Same thing with the pictures of the babies. The gold dusted babies. They have a new backstory for that one. And some guy at Hong Kong, was buying them. Now that's just their cover stories.
What's the real story here?
This is the day that technology and DC banded together. Like, I'm talking about Game of Thrones, and they create alliances, and these alliances will fall apart. Even within each circle, there's people are always trying to be the number one. It's all, if you watch horses hang out in groups of threes, and then the groups of threes hang out in groups of threes. So you have 9, and then on and on and on. It's always threes, and the threes are always changing. These guys do the same thing. It's odd. They're always hanging out in groups of threes, and these groups of threes or multiples of threes, they're constantly changing a lot. So anyway, this is the day that and can you imagine the ritual that went on after this dinner? I mean, how many people? Anyway, yeah.
What kind of ritual went on after this?
The highest, the blood rituals. I mean, they I can't. It's hard for me to see, but I've never really looked real close to see what's on the table. But I bet you there's some weird stuff on the table.
Wouldn't surprise me.
It would surprise me if it wasn't. I mean, I know for a fact that these guys there was a lot of bloodshed that night. I know that for a fact. Well, I shouldn't say for a fact I wasn't there, but I'm 99% sure that there was some lost souls that night.
So this picture I was talking about because, again, we were looking at the alliances here. This was a time when Obama was very, very deeply into the technology and the voting technology and the power of this technology for surveillance and other purposes. And they were all combining in forces, which was not for the advancement of freedom or God. This was the exact opposite. The celebratory nature of it, all toasting, and Obama at the center position of it is, again, the recognition of the dark side of, what I was writing about in Obama Nation. I was writing that Obama really did not have any faith, that he was raised as a Muslim, that he ridiculed Christianity, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what I found interesting about Cregg was willing to write about it. So we have this novel out now. Now, the reason we're going to make this
wait a minute, Jerry. I wasn't all that willing. I mean, it took you 6 years to get me to write this book.
Yeah, it took me 6 years to get you to write this book. It was not easy to get you to do it. And
I even threw it out. I threw it out the first one.
Yeah, well, you quit on it any number of times.
Yeah.
And then would attack me on the internet one way or another. And I decided to ignore all that.
Oh.
And I just kept coming back to you to keep saying, okay, well, he's had a period of time now, he's recovered and he's back. And so we started it again.
It was very difficult to go through that. I mean, I apologize for the things that I did, but I was just, it was really hard. It was really hard. Well,
I understood what you were doing because I understood how hard it was. And I understood how hard this was going to be to bring to fruition. This was not necessarily this book. This book has a power to it, which is designed to expose the evil so that it can be eradicated.
When I was done with that book, I didn't care if it sold a single copy. To me, it was I needed to write that book. That book cured me. Well, I'm not cured yet, but
it was a spiritual exercise. it did more than just cure you. It was a moral, mortal first blow to the evil itself.
Yes.
Because what this evil can't stand is the light of day. And what will
Right.
ultimately destroy it is the light of day. And that's the nature of the truth that had to be told. Now, I knew that this was not going to be easy for you to do, and we were going to go through a lot of anguish to get it done. And quite frankly, I didn't know from time to time whether you would ever return or whether you were able to get control of yourself so you could advance on it, or whether it would be overwhelming and you'd have to quit. But
I
you
didn't
kept
either.
coming. Well, I'm sure you didn't either. You kept coming back, though. And when you did, I figured, okay, here's an historic opportunity to record what this evil is really all about. And
Well, it's funny. The first book took me like 6 years to kind of write when you and I were working, and I didn't know how to write, didn't know what I was doing, and then I got to a point. Then my mother died. I couldn't go see her, and I couldn't go to the funeral. I couldn't. I was so livid that I saw that and I tore it up and I deleted it. But Corrine had saved a bunch of it, and then a couple of years later, she pulled it out and said, maybe you should look at this again. And at the same time, you and I were back in contact. So I'll let you know that, yeah. And then you said, yeah, go ahead and write it again. And I sat down and I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. I wrote 1,000 pages, and we had to go through and pick out, 450.
Yeah, and your writing improved as you went along. You taught yourself how to write.
Yeah, when you write that much, you kind of have to. I mean,
you learned how to develop characters. You learned how to develop scenes and dialogue, and the writing definitely improved. And I think now your second novel is going to be even better because you've mastered some of the craft of putting the story together.
Plus, I've learned how to be organized, how to organize all this. It's like, my biggest problem was keeping track of everything. The first time. This time it's a lot more organized. Doing it the way you've suggested is really good because it helps keep me organized.
Yes, well, I think the second novel, I think what's going to happen, and Chris, you can take that picture down now. We've had enough of that picture. But
by the way, I just wanted to point out that, okay, so if you look, that's Larry Ellison's table.
Yeah.
Right there. And Larry Ellison has 2 children. I don't know if you're aware of this. So both are top shelf Hollywood producers. Any big movie you can think of, you can name right now, they're involved in. So that's where the Hollywood connect. So you got the Hollywood connection at that table as well.
Right, and a lot of those people are involved with companies like Google and other companies, and these were the top people in Silicon Valley that were creating today's social media, today's advanced computing. And,
but what I'm suggesting is that it was more than just we're going to do all that. It was also, and we are going to take down the DC Lucy's, and we're going to take down the Texas Lucy's. They were forming an alliance at that table. That's what that was. I'm surprised that they let somebody take a picture of it. I'm surprised that picture got out. I would like to know who took the picture.
I have no idea.
I've never been able to find out either.
It just appeared, and when it did appear, it caught my attention right away, and then you helped explain it to us, and we began to be aware of this dimension was actively involved in our society. And I think one of the things right now going on even today, I look at Europe and see Macron wanting to go to war, and of course Macron is married to an older man dressed as a woman.
Yeah, and isn't that also his father?
It could well be.
That's Candace Owens is bringing this out, that his father left, came back as a woman, and he's a pedophile and married his own son. So Macron's weird looking wife is actually his father, his biological father.
And you've got equal bizarre natures throughout the EU. Mm-hmm. And these demons now seem to be wanting to go to war with Putin, putting European armies in Ukraine, which is insanity, in order to have their evil not exposed. And the heart of the evil that could be exposed is probably what's in the Epstein files and other files, which will come out. I mean, these are, Epstein was, I think, probably a triple agent working for the CIA, the KGB, and the Mossad, and his job was to, entice people into bizarre sexual behavior, including pedophilia and other human sacrifice, who knows, and record it all.
Even if the Epstein files come out, Jerry, it's going to be a nothing burger. There are so many Epsteins. Andrew Tate is an Epstein. P. Diddy is an Epstein. There are Epsteins everywhere. Oprah Winfrey is an Epstein. His file doesn't really matter. I look at it as it's just a distraction to keep our eyes off the rest of them. And so now we know that this is going on. Here's the guy. Here's the focus on this guy over here. That's the source of it all. That's once we got that taken care of, then it's going to go away. Have you seen how many of these Luciferian elites have these crazy children over here in America just as well? I mean, this is crazy over here. I'm gonna hold off on deciding what I believe about Trump for now, because Trump seems to be a savior, and that makes me very suspicious. But maybe he is.
Well, I've known Trump for a long time, and
a lot of people have known me a long time.
Trump was
no idea.
Well, I'm sure, but Trump was also celebrity New York and celebrity worldwide, and he certainly had the opportunities to participate. But having known him, I don't, certainly now, today, I don't see signs of, I think for whatever reason, Trump never did go over into the dark side. The thing about Trump that people have to remember is he was raised Christian. His father was up in the, I think the Bronx, and they would every Sunday go into Norman Vincent Peale's church in Lower Manhattan. Norman Vincent Peale was a very, very prominent preacher of the 1950s who wrote The Power of Positive Thinking. And I think the formative aspect of Donald Trump's life did begin in Christianity and did begin with that positive attitude, which has persisted in Donald Trump. So, I mean, I do not see signs of the Luciferian in Trump at all. And you can say I might be being fooled and it's there, but I just don't see it. And there's others for whom I have no doubt about it.
I do see it, but what I'm saying, for example, the Gaza Vision video, first of all, it's 33 seconds long. 33. I mean, you can call that a coincidence? No, it's not. It's not. 33 is never a coincidence anymore. If the number really is 33, they'll change it to 32 or 34 or 35. 33 is a marker. There's bearded belly dancers in that video. What's up with that? What's the bearded belly dancers all about? There's the golden statue. Remember the golden calf? 35,000. Anyway, like I said, I'm going to hold on. Right now, he looks like a savior who's being tarnished, but I don't trust anybody. I really don't.
Well, that video seemed to me to be, first of all, I'm not sure who produced it. He put it up on his social media. I'm not sure who produced it, but I'm
hoping that he saw it, liked it, and put it up too fast.
That's, I think, likely to be what happened. Is that it's for instance, in the Disney movies, when they go back and they show all the Satanism in the Disney movies going back to almost the very beginning.
Yeah.
Someone put that there.
Right.
Now, knows Walt Disney is Satanist. I'm not, I haven't crossed that path yet. That to me is not what I saw in Walt Disney. Okay. And it's now we're showing your imagery here. So I think that was, that particular video was bizarre. Okay. And it could have easily been a mockery of Trump that he did not fully perceive as such. And he liked the idea that it showed the vision of a resort Gaza as opposed to a terrorist Gaza.
Right. It looked like the kind of thing that Trump, the developer, would do.
Yes.
Until you look close.
Well, and as I say, I don't know who produced that.
Yeah. Well, what I've heard is it's an AI produced video from some hack group. I mean, that's as close as I can get to where did this thing come from.
Yeah, I don't think it was Trump produced.
No, because otherwise they would have said so.
Yeah,
and I think he just didn't vet it. He put it out, didn't vet it. I'm hoping that.
Well, I think he didn't think about it very hard.
Yeah.
and certainly didn't look at it. Now, but you've just illustrated one of the things I want to point out, and that is, given the experience you've been through, you get to see the satanic signs and things that the normal person would pass by and not recognize.
Can't unsee them.
Yeah, and
I can't.
and what we're showing here, Chris is showing your art from the website, and you're a talented illustrator too. You produce remarkable images, and you could produce a whole video feature film of all this, which maybe someday you will do. I'll encourage you to do.
Well, some of those I did steal, but most of it, yeah, is mine. And I figured this out just like this year, how to do this, just to do this, actually.
Well, again, that's part of your genius. You can do things with computers that the normal person wouldn't even comprehend could be done. And
I have a real affinity for this kind of stuff. And then I also have this very peculiar drive where once I focus on something, you can't get me out of it. I'll stick to it for 36 hours straight if I have.
Yeah, you tend to obsess. You obsess on things.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but I'm going to encourage you to do more videos. I'm going to encourage you to do a whole feature film someday.
Okay, that'd be fun, and that'd be really fun. And the thing is, people watching videos more than reading books now, so it might be a better way to get the messages out.
Well, that's going to be the next thing I'm going to do. Is I'm going to encourage you to take these serializations and make them into videos.
Okay, that'd be fun.
That'd be fun, and you can read it, you can watch it.
I like writing this way, by the way, because it allows me to be able to just come up with a part of the story, put it down, and then put it someplace.
Yes, I thought it would appeal to you.
Yeah. And then,
now I want you to take these segments and make them into videos.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Now you realize that through all this, you're going to develop a cult following.
Okay.
Okay. And
I'm not very personable. I may not follow up.
Well, no, you're completely you have no. Your social skills are lacking.
Yeah.
And you don't care.
I've done that on purpose. I don't, I hate going to town. Last time I went to town, I got my teeth knocked out again.
I know that. And I think that was an attack.
Yes, it happens a lot. It's the third time I've had my teeth knocked out.
Well, they don't want you talking.
Feel like dice, huh?
They don't want you talking.
These are all new.
But see, the point is that.
So the cult following, yeah.
Well, it's necessary in order to get the word out. In other words, for people to really see this. It's not for people to be attracted into it. That's not the goal.
God, hope not. Yeah, if that happens, then
the goal is
I'm held down for sure. Then
no, the goal is for people to see the seductive dark side of it, to see the true evil of it, to see what we've got a choice as human beings. We're at a point now where we could destroy everything with thermonuclear war. It could do it in 15 minutes. Could wipe out all the population of the world in probably half an hour.
I believe we're at a point now where everybody sees this, and everybody needs to make a choice at this point.
Yes.
You can't play dumb. You can't claim an ignorance anymore. It's out there. I mean, if you watch any show, I grew up with all these shows. You did too. All these shows, and now I try to watch them, and it's just satanic. It's just Luciferian all over it. I can't watch it. I can't watch any more football games. I can't watch the Grammys or the Oscars because that's all I see, and it's just, to me, it's terrifying because people are loving it. They're loving it.
Point. Once they see through it, once people perceive it and can understand the evil nature of it, which is essential to do. We're not going to defeat this by hiding it. We're going to defeat this by exposing it. For instance, the Democrats in the State of the Union sitting there and looking like they were all about as evil as you could get. And they appeared evil. I mean, the evil began to exude from them, their hatred, as they sat there and watched these people being celebrated, who were celebrating God, and a child who had brain cancer and wanted to be a cop and gets a badge to be an honorary Secret Service agent. That kid, his joy at that moment was almost, you bring tears to your eyes. And these people are sitting there with hate in their heart. Okay, now that's, again, once we demonstrate this to people once they see the facade, once they see the evil disguised as attractive and alluring. Because that's the whole. Satan is fundamentally a liar, and so therefore the attractive facade is to seduce you into horrors beyond imagination. And once you see that, then you are armed to not be seduced by it and to reject it. The fundamental prayer is to renounce Satan.
Yeah, what I'm hoping with this book is that when people read it, is that A, they can recognize what's going on, and B, that they will realize how horrible people really can be. I mean, as you know, I toned down a lot of this because I had to. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even gotten published. It would have gotten banned. But people need to realize how it's not just a little bit here, a little bit there. It's deep, it's big, and it's everywhere.
So someone goes against the loyalty, so they'll kill you and kill your children in front of you, torture the children, and then kill you.
It kind of depends on what level you're at. If you're at a high level, they'll take that chance. If you're at a low level, they'll just oust you. I mean, I wasn't at a high enough level yet to chase me down. I was at a high enough level that when I left, when I really got out, and a couple of people were trying to get in contact with me, I let them know that I had the goods on them, and they stopped. So they were trying to lure me back. I knew what they were up to, and it was subtle threats, and I let them know, well, here's what I have. Do you remember that project I was on? Yeah. I took some Polaroids, okay, and Polaroids cannot be photoshopped. So, but anyway, yeah.
Okay, so this is a first of many conversations, and we're going to. I want people to educate themselves because we've got to eradicate this evil. We've got to contain this evil. It's never going to be. Satan was created by God to give us a choice. And as more people understand the choice and understand the nature of evil, we have a greater opportunity to come to God. And it's not going to come to God, without a full appreciation of Satan. In the New Testament, Jesus Christ is tempted by Satan in the desert. And he has to come to the perception that Satan says, all this can be yours. You can rule over all of this. And Jesus says, what is it to rule over all this? It's nothing. This will serve me no good.
And he didn't stop with Jesus. He kept doing that same line over and over. He's still doing it, and people are buying it.
Yeah, they get seduced by the fact that they, in fact, once you begin to see the world as you see it, those who have just all this enormous wealth and all this enormous success and all this everything goes right for them in their life. They win the most basketball games ever, and they play the greatest events ever. They have the biggest corporations. They have billions of dollars. You say, this is not normal. This is the seductive power of buying into evil. You can own everything here, but you also sell your soul for it.
Mm-hmm.
And the price is you will do, in the process of gaining and holding on to all of this, you will do horrific things.
Mm-hmm.
And someone who would ruin a child's life, an innocent child born trusting parents, sold into sex slavery, that child's life, the crime of destroying that child's life is horrendous. It is abhorrent, and it's done every day.
So then, now you understand why nobody on that left side clapped, or that right side clapped for that little boy. They don't see a little boy. They see something that they've been desensitized. Everybody on that side has been through those rituals. I guarantee that. Not everybody. A lot of them. And so when they see a little boy like that, they're not naturally choked up like you and I are over the goodness of the whole thing, because they're so desensitized. They're so ruined at that point that they can't recover.
There's no recovery from that stage. No, that's
No.
they're already sold their soul to the devil. So, it's taken us 6 years and it's taken time, but this venture to get this exposed is a risk, but it's a risk that has to be taken because we are here not to hide from the evil, we're here to defeat the evil.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to defeat something you don't understand.
True. Very true. Well, this is the first time I've ever come out. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I'll do better after, as I go.
You've done just fine.
Tremendously nervous about not just being here, but what might happen after this. But
neither one of us know.
No.
But the point is
power of prayer.
Power of prayer. And that I've gone through many things in life where I should have been killed or imprisoned, and they've tried. And my marriage broke up 32 years. My wife decided to have an affair. She wanted me to quit politics. God put me back to work. So I'm not going to shy from the risks taken to do God's work.
Well, once you start doing it, it gets easy. I've noticed. I found that my life got easier. I ran around scared for a long time. I kept God over here, and I kept my other life over here, and I was kind of just floating around in the middle until I finally decided, well, I need to make a move. That's about the time I met Kareem.
Well, you made some choices.
Yeah. And
life is a series of choices, decisions. All right, so the book is Silicon Satan. We've now introduced it. It will be a permanent feature in CorsiNation.com. Cregg has a column. He's going to be doing serials, and he's now going to be doing animations of the serials. And I think it's going to be a fascinating trip. Don't promise it's going to be a comforting trip or an easy trip, but I can promise you that entered into with the Spirit to do God's work will send Satan back to hell for a long time, God willing. Cregg, thanks for joining us. God bless all. In the end, God always wins. God will win here too. This is Jerome Corsi with CorsiNation.com. The podcast every weekday. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow.